Cuban revolutionary, a Teamsters enforcer, and Bumpy Johnson. The pot, $500,000. The stakes, 3 governments' darkest secrets. The outcome, betrayal, blood, and a mystery that took 20 years to solve. The basement of Wells' restaurant didn't look like the center of American power. Red brick walls, a single overhead light casting shadows across green felt, cigarette smoke curling toward the ceiling like ghosts. But on the night of November 15, 1951, that room contained more dangerous secrets than the Pentagon. Bumpy Johnson sat with his back to the wall, as always. His position gave him a clear view of the stairs, the emergency exit, and most importantly, the faces of the 4 men who'd just walked into his private poker game. Men who shouldn't be in the same room together. Men whose presence meant this wasn't about cards. Senator Charles Morrison arrived first. Tall, silver-haired, the kind of man who looked presidential until you saw his eyes. Dead eyes. The kind that came from 20 years of taking money from anyone willing to pay. Morrison represented New York in the Senate, but he really represented whoever wrote the biggest checks. Tonight, that was Bumpy Johnson. Behind Morrison came Vincent, the Hammer Torino, Teamsters enforcer, Jimmy Hoffa's personal problem solver. Torino had been breaking legs and burning trucks for 15 years. His hands were the size of dinner plates, scarred from years of convincing people that cooperation was better than resistance. But tonight, Torino wasn't here to break anything. He was here to make a deal. The third man through the door was someone nobody expected. Carlos Mendez, a Cuban revolutionary who'd been fighting Batista's regime for 3 years. Lean, intense, carrying himself like a soldier even in civilian clothes. Mendez had information that could topple governments, information worth killing for. The fourth player was someone Bumpy trusted less than the others, which was saying something. Anthony Books Torelli, accountant for the Genovese family. Numbers man, clean hands, dirty soul. Books kept track of money that didn't officially exist. Money that could buy senators, judges, even presidents. 5 men sat around that table. 5 men with enough collective power to reshape America. 5 men who'd all brought something more valuable than money to this game. Bumpy dealt the first hand, 7-card stud, high stakes. But everyone knew the real game wasn't poker. It was information, secrets, power, the kind of currency that could make or destroy nations. Senator Morrison spoke first, his voice carrying the practiced authority of a man used to being obeyed. "Gentlemen, before we begin, I want to make something clear. What happens in this room stays in this room, forever. Anyone who talks, dies. No exceptions." The hammer cracked his knuckles, a sound like breaking bones. "Senator, in my line of work we don't make threats. We make promises. And I promise, anyone who betrays this circle won't live to regret it." Carlos Mendez lit a thin cigar, his English accented but perfect. "In Cuba we have a saying, 3 men can keep a secret if 2 of them are dead. Tonight there are 5 of us. Those are dangerous odds." "Books." Torelli said nothing, just pushed a leather briefcase under the table with his foot. Inside was something that had taken him 6 months to acquire, something that could destroy every man in this room, including himself. Bumpy looked at his cards. Pair of kings. Good hand. But in this game, good hands could get you killed if you played them wrong. "Let's establish the rules. We're playing for information. Each hand, the winner gets to ask 1 question. Any question. And the loser has to answer truthfully, no matter what." Morrison's jaw tightened. "And if someone refuses to answer?" "Then they forfeit everything," Bumpy said quietly. "Money, secrets, life. This isn't a gentleman's game, Senator. This is war with cards." The first hand played out slowly, each man studying the others, looking for tells, for weaknesses, for the moment when someone would reveal more than they intended. Morrison won with 3 sevens. "My question is for you, Mendez," Morrison said, leaning forward. "How much does Eisenhower know about Operation Mongoose?" The room went dead silent. Operation Mongoose was classified beyond top secret, a CIA plan to assassinate Castro that hadn't even been approved yet. The fact that Morrison knew about it meant he had sources inside the highest levels of American intelligence. Mendez's face revealed nothing, but his left hand tightened around his cigar. The president knows nothing. The plan exists only on paper, for now. But it will be implemented? You asked one question, Senator. You got one answer. The second hand. The hammer dealt, his massive fingers surprisingly delicate with the cards. Torino won with a full house. Books, the hammer said, his voice like gravel. I want to know about the Swiss accounts, the ones connected to the dock workers' pension fund. How much did your people steal? Fuchs Torelli's face went pale. The Swiss accounts were supposed to be untraceable, unhackable, unknown. If the Teamsters knew about them, it meant someone inside the Genovese family was feeding information to their enemies. 12 million, Books whispered. Over 3 years. Morrison smiled coldly. That's enough to buy a small country. It's enough to buy senators. Books shot back, looking directly at Morrison. The third hand was dealt by Mendez. His revolutionary hands moved with military precision, each card placed with purpose. Bumpy won with straight flush. Senator Morrison, Bumpy said slowly, I want to know about the files. The ones you keep in your private safe. The ones with photographs of congressmen in compromising positions. Morrison's composure cracked for just a moment. Those files were his insurance policy, his guarantee that certain votes would always go his way. How do you know about? Answer the question. Morrison's voice was barely audible. 47 congressmen, 16 senators, 3 federal judges, all compromised, all controllable. The temperature in the room seemed to drop 10 degrees. Everyone understood what they'd just heard. Morrison wasn't just a corrupt politician. He was running the largest blackmail operation in American history. Books dealt the fourth hand. His accountant's precision made the cards whisper across the felt. Mendez won with 4 aces. Torino, Mendez said, pointing his cigar at the hammer. Tell me about the Kennedy connection. How deep does it go? The hammer's face turned to stone. The Kennedy name was dangerous territory, especially for someone in his position. Bobby Kennedy has been investigating the Teamsters for 18 months. He's got evidence that could destroy Hoffa, but we've got evidence that could destroy him. What kind of evidence? Financial records, payments from questionable sources during Jack's Senate campaign. Enough to end both their careers. Morrison leaned forward, suddenly interested. How much are we talking about? You already asked your question, Senator. Bumpy dealt the 5th hand, 5-card draw. The pot had grown to $500,000, but everyone knew the real value of what they were trading was immeasurable. Government secrets, criminal empires, revolutionary plans, blackmail material. Information worth more than money, more than gold, more than life itself. The betting was aggressive. Each man pushed chips forward like they were moving armies into position. Morrison raised. The hammer called. Mendez raised again. Books folded. Bumpy called. 3 players left. The tension was suffocating. In the distance, they could hear the restaurant above them closing down. Chairs being stacked on tables. The last customers heading home. Down here, 5 men were reshaping the future of America, 1 card at a time. Morrison showed first. 3 queens. Strong hand. The hammer laid down his cards. Full house. Aces over 8s. Mendez smiled for the first time that evening. Royal flush. He reached for the pot. $500,000 in cash, small bills, untraceable. Money that could fund a revolution or buy a senator or disappear someone who asked too many questions. That's when the lights went out. Complete darkness. The kind of black that makes you question whether your eyes are open or closed. Someone knocked over a chair, glass shattered. Heavy breathing in the darkness, the scrape of shoes on concrete. Nobody move, Bumpy's voice cut through the chaos. Nobody breathe. Nobody thinks about running. 12 seconds later, the lights came back on. Emergency lighting dim but sufficient. Everyone was still in their seats. Everyone looked exactly as they had before. Except for one thing. The money was gone. $500,000 had vanished from the center of the table. 5 men, all within arm's reach, all with alibis, all with motives. Someone had just pulled off the most audacious theft in criminal history, and nobody had seen anything. Bumpy stood slowly, his hand moving to his waistband. "Gentlemen, we have a problem." Morrison's face was flushed with rage. "That money was mine. I won that hand fair and square." "Actually," Mendez said calmly, still holding his royal flush, "I believe the pot belonged to me." The hammer cracked his knuckles again. "Whoever took it has about 30 seconds to put it back before I start breaking bones." Books Torelli said nothing, just stared at the empty space where the money had been, calculating odds and probabilities in his accountant's mind. Bumpy pulled out his .38 revolver and placed it on the table next to the cards. "Here's how this works. Someone in this room is a thief. Someone took money that didn't belong to them, and I'm going to find out who." "You think one of us did it?" Morrison demanded. "We're all sitting right here. None of us moved." "The lights were out for exactly 12 seconds, Bumpy said. "In 12 seconds, someone reached across this table, grabbed $500,000 and hid it. The question is where?" He looked around the room slowly, studying each man's face, their posture, their breathing. "Everyone empty your pockets, everything on the table now." Morrison hesitated. "This is insulting. I'm a United States Senator." "And I'm the man with the gun pointed at your chest," Bumpy replied evenly. "Empty your pockets." One by one they complied. Wallets, cigarettes, lighters, coins, keys. Everything that 5 powerful men carried with them into the most dangerous poker game in history. But no money. No sign of the missing $500,000. "Strip search," the hammer suggested. "Right here, right now." "Nobody's stripping," Bumpy said. "The money's not on anyone. It's hidden in this room." He began a systematic search. Behind the boiler, under the stairs, inside the ventilation ducts. Nothing. The money had disappeared as completely as if it had never existed. "There's another possibility," Book said quietly. "Someone else was down here. Someone we didn't see." "Impossible," Bumpy replied. "I know every entrance to this basement. There's the stairs we came down and the emergency exit. Both were locked from the inside." Mendez stood up, crushing his cigar in the ashtray. "Perhaps the money was never real to begin with. Perhaps this entire evening was an elaborate setup." $500,000 in real bills, Morrison snapped. "I counted it myself." "Then where is it?" the hammer demanded, his massive frame casting shadows across the table. That's when Bumpy noticed something. The emergency exit door, which had been locked from the inside, was now slightly ajar. Just a crack, barely visible unless you were looking for it. Someone had been down here. Someone who knew about the game, knew about the money, knew exactly when to strike. But who? And more importantly, how had they gotten in and out without anyone noticing? The answer came 3 days later, when FBI agents raided the restaurant. They found the basement, found evidence of the poker game, found traces of the 5 men who'd been there, but they never found the money. The investigation revealed something extraordinary. The entire game had been a setup from the beginning. Someone had orchestrated the meeting, brought together 5 men with dangerous secrets, and used their greed and paranoia against them. Someone who knew about Operation Mongoose, about the Swiss accounts, about Morrison's blackmail files, about everything. Senator Morrison resigned 2 weeks later, citing health problems. He moved to Switzerland and was never seen in America again. The hammer was found dead in his car outside Detroit, 3 bullets to the head. Professional job. No witnesses. Carlos Mendez disappeared entirely. Some say he returned to Cuba and was killed by Batista's forces. Others claim he's still alive somewhere in South America, funding revolutions with stolen American money. Books Torelli had a nervous breakdown and spent the rest of his life in a mental institution, claiming that the government was watching him through the walls. And Bumpy Johnson? He never spoke about that night, never mentioned the game, the money, or the men who'd sat around his table. But people close to him noticed something. In the weeks following the game, Bumpy paid off several major debts, expanded his operation, and became more powerful than ever. When reporters asked him about the rumors, about the missing money and the dead men, Bumpy just smiled that cold, calculating smile and said, "I don't know anything about any poker game." But 20 years later, in 1971, a construction crew renovating Wells Restaurant found something interesting in the basement walls. A hidden compartment, empty now, but clearly designed to hold something valuable. Something exactly the size of $500,000 in small bills. They also found a note, written in Bumpy Johnson's distinctive handwriting. "The house always wins." The most dangerous poker game in history had lasted less than 3 hours. 5 men had sat down to play. Only one had walked away with everything. The others had learned a hard lesson about power, trust, and the man who really controlled Harlem. Because in Bumpy Johnson's world, information was currency, secrets were weapons, and the smartest player wasn't always the one with the best cards. Sometimes the smartest player was the one who owned the house.